I'm struggling with social anxiety and talking to attractive women, and I've watched and listened to all the podcasts relating to this topic. I think deep down I have a shame around finding women attractive, so I find it difficult to express interest in them. I find that I can talk to women easily during activities like climbing or with my coworkers, but on dates with women, I can't seem to take things forward playfully like you'd expect on a date. I'm too serious, and I think that turns women off. I feel like I'm under the spotlight and I have to impress women, otherwise, they won't like me. I know this isn't true, and I've been trying to get myself to do exposure therapy by asking women for their numbers and being rejected, so it helps with that. Also, I struggle with social expectations. I hear women say that they don't want to be approached or talked to or anything. So I just end up avoiding women because I don't want to annoy them. But it holds me back from getting the sex and the relationships I want. Any help on this would be much appreciated.
Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Barovsky, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new TEAM therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Hello, David, and welcome to all of our listeners around the country, around the world, throughout the galaxy. This is episode 441 of the Feeling Good podcast. And again, we're so happy to invite our beloved Matt May with us. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Rhonda. Hey, David. So good
Hi,
to
Matt.
see you and be with you.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with a really cool endorsement that actually is included with you too, Matt. So if someone wrote, "Hello, doctors. I've recently listened to the podcasts that ponder the philosophical questions beginning with episode 406 about existence. I really loved those. I particularly loved the perspective offered that these are questions that have no meaning. That's my interpretation. And enjoying our time is what life is all about. It brings me so much peace. Also, Dr. May's interpretation of free will was very insightful for alleviating guilt, not just for me, not just for my close relationships, but for everyone in my daily life. It was great stuff as always. Thank you so much, Guillermo."
Oh, thank you. It feels really good to hear that. I'm glad it was helpful.
Nice. But here's our first question. It's from Brittany. And Brittany asked us, "What can I say to a friend who doesn't say thank you to me when I pay for our meals or drive a long distance just to see them?" Hello, David and Rhonda and Matt. I have a friend who typically does not say thank you to me when I pay for a meal out or I drive us a long distance. I am someone who always says thank you, even if the person only bought me $10 worth of fast food or gave me a short ride. I find myself feeling resentful toward my friend for not saying anything when I pay and drive us around all day. It makes me feel like they don't appreciate it or me. At the same time, talking about it and sharing my feelings would then feel like I'm asking them to say it, and then it wouldn't feel authentic. I have said something about it in the past, and they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, thank you." But it didn't mean that much at that point. Is this one of those annoying traits I just have to learn to accept?
Well, let me blurt out something first that I'm afraid I'll forget if I don't say it right away. Expressing your feelings, well, first of all, you have to know what a feeling is. And I know that that's a very abstract concept that nobody can figure out. But a feeling is something like mad, hurt, sad, anxious, worried, that type of thing. And what you're not doing, Brittany, is sharing your feelings with your friend. You're trying to get your friend to change or think there's something that's supposed to be done, but the real power is just to say to your friend to share your feelings and get your friend to share her feelings, is to say, I love you to death, but one thing that's different from us is I always like to say thank you, and it means a lot to me. Uh, and yet I do a lot of things for you, like, and vice versa. But like, buying fast food or driving so we can be together. And you don't often say thank you. In fact, you don't ever say thank you. And I just wanted you to know that I feel hurt because I love you so much, and I feel that somehow I might have let you down. But at the same time, I've never asked you about your point of view on this. And maybe you were raised in a family where people didn't say thank you, or maybe you think saying thank you is a fake or phony thing or something. And so I'd love to get your feelings right now, and also how you feel about my bringing this up, because I'm concerned too. I might be turning you off or hurting your feelings or insulting you in some way, even now. So can you tell me a little bit more about this? So how was that?
Well, I really
I
love
liked
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Matt?
Well, I can relate because I am, you know, an excessively nice person, and I often fail to communicate my feelings. Um, and I found it useful to acknowledge that too, just to say, I think this is actually my fault because, the first time it happened, I felt too shy or awkward to say anything, but I was feeling really hurt on the inside.
Hmm.
But there was no way for you to know that because I didn't tell you that I was feeling that way. And so when it happened again, I was even more upset. And it's one of those things that kind of built up inside of me. And now it's coming out in an awkward way. And I wonder how it's sounding to
Oh, I
you.
love that, Matt. That is so cool.
I love that too.
I've lived it over and over again.
Y-
So, yeah.
One of the things that Jill talked about, I think either on this podcast or in the Tuesday group, is if we don't share our feelings authentically with another person, and this has really stayed with me since she taught this. If we don't share our feelings authentically with another person, it's almost like we're saying that we don't respect them enough to be able to hear us, or to deal with it, or to
Yeah,
handle
right.
it. And so we're really honoring them when we're sharing our feelings with them.
Yeah. But again, I want to emphasize that when we say to people, we think that sharing feelings is really important, and people think they understand what we're saying and they think they can do it, but you don't understand and you can't do it. So there.
And it requires a
He
lot of
says
lot of
angrily.
practice. Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
what were you about to say, Matt? I'm on the same page as you.
Well, it just seems like it does require a tremendous amount of practice. I think in a situation like this, what I like to be able to do is to express my feelings in a way that makes that other person feel really great.
oh, yeah, yeah, right. Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
so it's not just the I feel angry with you or
yeah.
something like that. It's packaging it with all of the five secrets.
Yeah, you can attack with your anger in an aggressive way, or you can share your anger in a loving way, and that's about as different as the sun and the moon.
Well, Matt, does that come naturally to you, or is that something you had to practice and learn?
I had to practice. David taught me all this stuff. I didn't know this until I met David in medical school, and I didn't grow up in a family that was, talked about their feelings.
Really? But
And
your mom
so
was
it
a
was very,
psychiatrist. She didn't talk about her feelings or your feelings?
I guess maybe a little more than some folks, but not my dad and not that side of the family.
Hmm.
So it felt like learning a foreign language. It felt
Yeah,
very
yeah, it
awkward and
is. Yeah,
unfamiliar to me, but
and
David provided a really safe training space
yeah, and
to
the reason
practice.
I'm such a good trainer is because I'm so inept myself. I've really had to work at it and figure out, how to communicate. But the thing is that when I have a feeling, then I automatically suppress it because I feel ashamed, and I tell myself I shouldn't feel angry at this person,
Hmm.
or something like that, or I shouldn't feel embarrassed right now, or I shouldn't feel awkward, or I shouldn't admit an error in the Tuesday class or something like that, because there's this part of me that tells me you're supposed to be a particular way. And maybe it's because my dad was a minister, and after the church service, we would stand. The congregation goes out and shakes hand with the minister. You know how that goes, and they say, enjoyed your sermon today, Pastor, or whatever. But then he would have us or me, or I don't know who all, but I know I would always be standing there with him, and thinking I was supposed to behave in a particular way and be a particular way.
Yeah, there's
There's a
certain rules,
PK.
like interpersonal rules that I think we
Yeah,
all have
yeah,
and follow.
yeah.
And that,
Preacher's kid. Uh,
yeah,
Yeah.
always supposed to be good and well
yeah,
behaved and
yeah, yeah.
But I'm kind of
not
curious.
get upset.
I'm curious about how you brought this up, Matt, that you share your feelings, especially I'm wondering how this works with anger or more feelings that you could actually attack or like more painful feeling. How do you share anger in a way that like makes the other person feel good or is supportive toward the other person?
Well, it's just packaged with a lot of the other five secrets. I'll say, I'm feeling angry, and and sometimes I'll try to attach it to a thought that I have, because I have this thought that you should always say thank you to me or something like that. And then I like to kind of defeat that thought too, but that's a ridiculous thought. That's not an agreement that we had. It's not something that I do all the time. I forget to say thank you a lot, so I kind of try to disarm and point out how I've probably kind of caused this to be a worse dynamic by not talking about it sooner, and share with them that I really appreciate our time together and that it's really important to me. And I can be kind of a sensitive person and think, oh, because she didn't say thank you, that means that she doesn't care about me. But I know that's ridiculous too. I know that you care about me. You've done a lot of things to show that you care about me, like this and this. And so it's really the packaging with the other five secrets that allows the message to come across as one of love and a desire to connect to that person,
And you
rather
could,
than to punish them with my feelings.
yeah, you could also say, and it's especially hard for me to tell you, I sometimes get angry with you because I love you so much, and so I feel, oh, I should never feel angry, and then I know a lot of my negative thoughts aren't are kind of distorted should statements and things like that too. So I feel a little foolish about it.
Yeah,
But I did want to show you where I'm at.
yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Let me ask another question. Is this something that you learn? Like you learned it in medical school or in your residency when you met David, and then once you learn it, does it stay with you forever? Or is this a something that you have to keep relearning? And is it something that you have to keep practicing over and
No,
over again?
once you learn it, it stays with you forever. That's why I've become a bit of a god myself.
I guess I'm trying to make a point that this is a lifetime of
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
learning with
right.
the five secrets.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Life is a bit of an like swimming upstream, uh, and hitting some rocks along the way
Uh-huh.
too.
Yeah.
on the same topic, David, something you taught me too is an expression that I just love, which is that all feelings get expressed. And so another question might be, if she's feeling kind of angry with her friend or upset or disappointed or uncared for, how is that getting expressed?
Yeah, you can't hide it.
Yeah, it's coming out in some way,
Yeah,
either skillfully or unskillfully.
yeah, through passive aggressive behavior or statements or behaviors. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And
some cold
that's why,
shouldering maybe, and to
you know,
be able to acknowledge that too as part of the disarming. I think I've also maybe hurt you by
yeah,
behaving that way.
yeah, yeah, right, right. You can own up to that. And that's why Jill is a bit of a god or a goddess, I think, because she's so direct with people so quickly, and but in such a kindly way.
I
And I want
agree
to
with
throw
that.
one other wrench in this is that it's also could, our thoughts do create our feelings. And this could also be Brittany's feelings about what does it mean to be thanked? Because I have two dear, really good friends. They never say thank you to each other. And they're always kind of, to me, in my ears, they're barking at each other. Give me the salt. Where are the keys? Where I would like to hear, could you please pass me the salt? And I've actually said something like, you guys never say please or thank you to each other. And they're like, what? Who cares? We don't care. That doesn't bother us. It's not important.
I have a question for you right now, Rhonda. Who just didn't express her feelings?
Brittany.
Nope. Good guess. Who was just talking?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, what feeling didn't I express?
The feeling that when they're kind of barking at each other, you feel uncomfortable and kind of hurt or angry or anxious.
Yes, exactly. When I see my friends barking at each other, I feel kind of stunned and and I feel anxious and
So,
uncomfortable.
how would you say that to them? Because that's what we're trying to model, right?
How would I really say it to them?
Yeah.
Gosh, you guys have such a great relationship. You're one of my role models for relationships. And I hear you going back and forth with each other. You never say please or thank you. And I feel really uncomfortable with that because saying please and thank you really has a is important to me. And I'm wondering what it's like for the two of you that you don't say that to each other. I wonder what that's like to even hear my feelings about this conversation. Like, can you talk to me about what that's like for you guys?
Okay. Uh, what grade do you give yourself?
Well, I didn't acknowledge their feelings, so I'd say a B because I consciously thought, well, what are they feeling? I didn't know, so I left that out. So because I left that out, I would give myself a B.
How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think a B. Um, yeah, I would like to get your feedback, David.
Well, I was hoping to get yours, but
Okay.
but
You
I
guys are
didn't
funny.
hear a lot about your feelings, Rhonda. I might, I would say it was a B plus. I probably would have given it a B plus or an A minus or something. But again, it's the I feel. I love you two to death, and but sometimes you kind of looks to me like you're barking out orders at each other in a demanding way, and I feel really uncomfortable with that happen when that happens. I feel kind of upset or hurt or anxious, and all the more so because I love the two of you so much. And I even went into a battle with myself of whether I should even out of place, maybe even to say this. Maybe it's not my right, and you guys can be whatever way you want to be. But I just wanted to mention that I that I that that style is hard for me sometimes. I don't know how's that.
That was really great. I
Why?
loved that. I was thinking, I don't have any right to say this. I
Yeah,
was feeling uncomfortable, but the fact that you could say that out loud made it all the
yeah,
more
yeah,
heartfelt and
yeah.
authentic.
But that's why it's so hard to express your feelings. People write these books, oh, express your feelings. That's the key to mental health. And that's such horseshit. But it never, every generation, some book comes along and says that, and then it becomes a number one bestseller. And everyone thinks, oh, this is the key to love and relationships and happiness. But we have this dialogue inside of our heads going on that says, oh, David, you shouldn't feel this way. Or Matt, you shouldn't feel this way. Or Rhonda, you shouldn't feel this way, and we censor ourselves like crazy. And that's half of the battle, is to learn to talk back to the that enemy in your head that's constantly putting up where we're putting ourselves down all the way. And then the other half of the battle is to learn how to say these things in a loving way.
That is so beautiful and well said. I think we need to go on to the next question because
Okay,
I don't think we could
I'll
add
let you
anything to
go.
that.
Yeah.
That was great. Okay. So now we're going to answer Jay Deep's question. And he asks, how can I get over my anxiety around attractive women? Hi, David. Many thanks for the podcast. I'm struggling with social anxiety and talking to attractive women, and I've watched and listened to all the podcasts relating to this topic. I think deep down I have a shame around finding women attractive, so I find it difficult to express interest in them. I find that I can talk to women easily during activities like climbing or with my coworkers, but on dates with women, I can't seem to take things forward playfully like you'd expect on a date. I'm too serious, and I think that turns women off. I feel like I'm under the spotlight and I have to impress women, otherwise, they won't like me. I know this isn't true, and I've been trying to get myself to do exposure therapy by asking women for their numbers and being rejected, so it helps with that. Also, I struggle with social expectations. I hear women say that they don't want to be approached or talked to or anything. So I just end up avoiding women because I don't want to annoy them. but it holds me back from getting the sex and the relationships I want. Any help on this would be much appreciated.
Well, let you guys have the first round on this one. You
Yeah, what do you
how,
think, Rhonda?
Well, actually, I'd like to. I know he's struggling with social anxiety, and I'd like to say that I kind of admire him that, um, he does. I think it talks about his values that he doesn't want to hurt women or he doesn't want to insult them or impose on them. And um,
he's thoughtful,
he's very thoughtful and,
sensitive.
and sensitive, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, neat. What's your? Let me just say, as an aside, I've exchanged several emails with this fellow, and he's very courageous, and he's making all kinds of forward progress. Just to bracket it, when he receives suggestions, he acts on them. He doesn't wimp out, and he's getting great feedback from people. But what's your take on it, Matt?
Yeah, David. So I've also had a lot of shyness and difficulty uh, getting up the courage to ask women out. And I read your book, Intimate Connections, and one of the things I learned in there was the first step is to find self-esteem, to develop your own internal sense of liking yourself as a flawed person without uh, needing approval from anyone else. And so I think that would be maybe the first thing that I'd recommend is and then I think he's doing the hard work of the rejection collection is to just desensitize to rejection and get more and more comfortable talking to attractive women and asking them out and getting rejected and realizing that it's not the end of the world when that happens. And there are many more opportunities where that comes from. Um, so yeah, some combination of developing self-esteem that's independent of approval, and then also going out and getting the rejections and really proving that it's safe to do
Yeah, neat. I remember your story. If you want to repeat it, when you went out for a night of
that.
rejection practice with some friends.
Yeah. I went to the Comet Club in San Francisco with a group of friends, and you had said that I need to. I think if there's any woman there who if they asked me out, I would say yes. I had to go and ask them out, and so I started doing that. And the first one was almost impossible. I could barely make myself walk over to that person, and I just stammered and
Oh, my
stuttered
arms and
and
legs were frozen.
yeah, I just had to really force my body to go over there. And she immediately like looked at me like I was a three-eyed toad, and I said, "I'm going to count that as a rejection, as one." But two or three or four rejections later, I had almost no anxiety, and I would approach like two or three women at the same time. I'd get rejected by one, and I'd turn to the other and get rejected by her friend and her other friend, and it stopped mattering. I just felt so loose and easy, and I started dancing and having a great time, and asking everyone out I saw and thought was attractive. And then at the end of the night, um, I went back to the table where one of there was a kind of gorgeous woman, part of the friend group that I'd never met before, and she said she said something like, "What have you been doing all night?" And I explained that I was a shy person and that I was trying to get over that, and so I was trying to collect a bunch of rejections, and that I was feeling better now because I realized it's not the end of the world if I get rejected. And she said, "Well, you never asked me out."
Oh,
And I said, "Well, I thought that would be a little inappropriate. I didn't want to put pressure on you or make you feel uncomfortable. You're part of the friend group, and I didn't want you to be in that situation where you have to say no." And she said, "Well, how do you know that I would say no?" And I said, "Well, I guess technically I don't." And I said, "I'd love to go out with you sometime. Would you be willing to go out on a date with me this Friday?" And she said, "I'd love to." And we ended up in a wonderful relationship for several years
oh
after
my
that
gosh.
until she went to medical school. Yeah.
Well, that is so cool,
That is
Matt.
really cool.
Yeah, my love life went from rags to riches,
Yeah.
just
Uh,
that one evening.
and then my final twist on it. You two have done beautifully already, but you can raise these issues. When you're meeting someone as a way of talking to them, and say, I have a question for you that I'm always ashamed when I'm around an attractive woman, and I feel like I shouldn't be attracted to her, or she'd be disgusted to know if I thought she was pretty or interesting or whatever. And I'm wondering, what do you think about that? Do you think that men shouldn't feel interested in attractive women, or do you think I'm off in left field or whatever? Maybe I think I'm sounding pretty elderly and lame right now, but to say something like that, I think can sometimes, allow you to connect with someone if they're open to connecting with. And I've had patients who I gave that instruction to, who ended up, meeting people that way, and marrying the people they met that way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, that's what we were
yeah,
talking about before. When you say
yeah,
the things in the back of your mind, you think, "Oh, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't feel that. I shouldn't
yeah,
think that." And you give voice to that, then that's a road to intimacy and closeness.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've told this story before, but maybe everyone hasn't heard it. Well, I had this very handsome fellow, and from the time he was little, his parents told him, "Oh, you're going to be a ladies' man because you're so gorgeous looking," and he took it as a kind of social pressure. And
Mm.
so when he was around attractive women, he would just get so anxious, and he just, he wasn't dating or talking to women or anything. And I told him on the train to work, just every day, I want you to sit next to whatever attractive women you can spot there, and just tell them that you've always, it's hard to relate to attractive women because you feel so anxious, and because you think you're not supposed to be shy, that you're ashamed of feeling shy and anxious. And just say to them, and if they are attractive, say, I'm feeling that way right now. I'm real ashamed because I think you're very attractive, and I'm telling myself I shouldn't be feeling this way. And the first woman he said that to, she said, "Oh, I've been wanting to meet someone like you, because men are always coming on to me and trying to impress me, and it gets sickening." And uh, she ended up giving him her phone number, and they went on a date and got married soon after that. And he,
Mm.
he didn't need to come back for sessions. But I ran into him years later in this restaurant we used to go to in Bryn Mawr. It was an Italian place for like pasta or pizza and stuff like that. And he came in with this beautiful woman and two or three children, and they came over to our table, and he said, do you remember me? You're this is the woman I sat with next to on the train, and your therapy was extremely successful.
God, that's
And
awesome.
introduced us to his wife and his kids. It was really fun, but it was hard for him to do that. It's we talk about confronting our fears, and Matt, what you did that night was incredibly courageous, and how awesome the way it ended up.
Well, you're the one who helped me get to the point of being able to do that. So thank you,
Yeah,
David.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, you have one more, and this is from Ali. And he wrote, "Can religious beliefs cause or intensify feelings of anxiety?" After reading your books, Dr. Burns, I've started to recognize that many of my anxious beliefs seem to have a religious background. For example, in the Bible, there's a verse from John 5:14. Later, Jesus found him at the temple and said to him, "See, you are well again. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you."
If you
Here's where
sin,
I
you're going to get mental disorders.
here's where I struggle. I want to live my life freely, which includes things like being with different women before marriage, something I already do. but according to religion, that's considered adultery and a sin. I often find myself looking at beautiful women on the street, which Christianity teaches is sinful, and this sometimes leads to feelings of guilt.
You remember what the Buddha said, Rhonda?
What did the Buddha
Sin away, my son.
say? Yeah, that's why we like the Buddha. So this Ali asks, I wonder, do I need to leave religion altogether to break free from these negative self-critical thoughts? And
Okay, well, this is a great one. I'll spit out my answer fast. If I can go first again.
you may.
Yeah, I think you have a choice, Ali, but I was raised in the same kind of thing. The very religious. My dad was a minister, and I remember in seventh grade, my mother told me, because they were doing the kissing parties started up sixth or seventh grade, and I thought that was very exciting. Spin the bottle, and then you go and kiss the person. Maybe go in a closet and kiss them. It sounded fantastic. My mother said, "You can go to these parties, but you mustn't kiss the girls." And it's so, as the Jesus so often said, it's so effing screwed up that you're not supposed to be sexual or romantic. And I think that there's a lot of rigidity in religion. And, when I got to college, I began questioning things of religion and got away from religion. I saw a lot of hatred in the name of religion, a lot of wars. I see it today too. A lot of just violence in the world, all in the name of this or that religion or against this or that religion. So I decided to do my own thinking. And but I would also say that I've discovered that when I'm doing team therapy with somebody, at the moment of recovery, there's a time where the psychological turns into the spiritual. And when people recover, they often have a spiritual experience that transcends just recovery. It becomes more like enlightenment. And they often experience it in terms of their own religious belief, whether that's Jewish or Islamic or Christian or Buddhist or whatever it is. And I think that's why I love so much being a therapist. I was supposed to be a minister. That my dad was a minister, and I was born on a Sunday, and he said that's the only day he got so excited he couldn't preach a sermon. And I thought I would be a minister, but I went in quite a different direction, and I rebelled pretty strongly because I saw a lot of hatred. Like Jews, could come to church and sit in the back row as long as they confess Jesus as their Lord and Savior. That's a bit exaggerated, but that's the spirit that I got. And David and Louis Levitas were my best friends in high school, and they were Jesus. And I told my dad, I can't believe you're saying they're going to go to hell if they don't convert to Christianity. And he got very rigid about things like that. And I hated it. And saying that, gay people, that was wrong to be gay. And then we see that hatred just really expanding in the world today. And I didn't like it. So I made my own decisions about things. And I personally feel that when you're young, that's the time to sow your wild oats, or you'll miss out on it when you get older and maybe have an affair and have a bad marriage because you never had fun when you were young. But anyway, that's my point of view. But I've never had a patient for whom a healthy religious belief was a barrier to therapy. Quite to the contrary, therapy opens up the capacity to have true enlightenment and spiritual insights.
Matt, can I jump in?
Absolutely, yeah. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Rhonda.
I mean, it's a little uncomfortable to hear of religion being used as a way of punishing or constricting someone, the way Ali described, instead of having religion be used or be expansive and be loving and embody love and compassion. And I agree with David. I agree with you, David. I've had deeply religious clients of all faiths who embrace the religion as a way of their values of how they want to live instead of a way of punishing themselves or others. And religion and spirituality goes very well hand in hand with work as a team therapist or as a
Yeah,
patient with who is receiving team
yeah.
therapy.
I'd say a mature religion rather than a rigid religiosity integrates with what we do.
Yeah.
What's your point of view, Matt?
Yeah, I agree that a lot of religion to me sounds like should statements. And we know that those aren't terribly effective. Um, in this case, I grew up in a Christian family, and I remember my grandfather had a copy of the Bible where everything that Jesus said was in red. And my mom at some point said, there's a lot in the Bible, but maybe just read those parts. And I just loved like 99% of what Jesus had to say, because the message was about loving your neighbor, turning the other cheek. When he came to a woman who was about to be stoned to death for committing adultery, which includes being raped, he said, whoever is without sin should throw the first stone. I loved a lot of his messages, and another that I really liked was he said something like a wealthy or a rich man will make it through the gates of heaven, as soon as a camel will walk through the eye of a needle.
Yeah,
And I think
that's
what he
kind of
was
a
saying is,
Buddhist thing, right?
yeah, that if we're attached to something else, if we think, oh, we need this, we need money to be happy or worthwhile. But if you think you need sex or something like that to be happy and worthwhile, if you think you need something else outside of you to have love in your heart, that you'll miss the whole point, and you'll kind of be in hell right there in that moment. But if you let go of those demands, so I need to be this way or I need to be rich first before I'm happy, then you can experience that kind of spiritual enlightenment and joy in that moment. Um, so that would be sort of bounding and trying to find a balance between those 2 points.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, but this has been a war for a long time because Albert Ellis, who was one of my heroes, kind of the father of cognitive therapy in the 1950s, he used to be death on religion, and
Hmm.
he thought that religion was kind of a cause of mental illness. I believe, if I understood him correctly, and he loved to antagonize religious people when he gave his workshops. And he would use the F word a lot. And he once told me that's why his audiences were bigger than mine, because he said every workshop he'll get at least 50 Catholic nuns and priests will attend to get insulted by him and to murmur what a horrible person he was. So he increased his audiences that way.
They
And
love to
then
hate him.
on the other hand, my father thought psychiatrists were from the devil, and that's actually opposed to religion. He was death against psychiatry, because you can only find God through a belief in Jesus. You can't be your own savior, or some kind of idea like that he had. So he was very suspicious. And my experience has been to see a beautiful integration. Everything we do in Team CBT is very similar to my own religious upbringing, I would say, in the best sense, like the whole thing about blame and as the cause of relationship problems. So that's over and over again in the Bible. When you blame somebody else, you're blaming yourself. You'll end up being to blame yourself. And so I just think it's possible to have a beautiful, healthy integration of Team CBT, what we do, what we try to do, and any serious religious belief, and also that it what we do moves from recovery into enlightenment. What I'm really trying to bring people is more than recovery, but enlightenment.
Beautifully said, David.
Beautifully said. Agreed. Well, I want to
Agreed.
thank you.
David, that was beautiful.
I know, it kind of brings tears to my eyes. I can see why you're the preacher's son.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Well, maybe I'll start preaching in my old age.
It's never too late, David.
Well, you
Yeah,
kind of already do.
yeah, Right.
Well, I want to thank you both for being on this podcast. And I think we had a lot of fun and we answered some interesting questions. So until
Absolutely.
next time,
Yeah.
thanks.
Oh, well,
Thank you,
we
Rhonda.
forgot to
Thank you,
promote
David.
my workshop
Oh
on
my
March
gosh,
28th.
a
Yes,
few
if you're
days from
still
now.
there, if anyone's still there, we're doing a great workshop on March 28th on habits and addictions, a David and Jill workshop. It'll be a full day, 7 CE credits. You'll learn all kinds of innovative, new, and paradoxical ways of treating all habits and addictions. And so if they want to find out, I guess I can put a link in the show notes, but also they can go to do you know the link for it, Rhonda, at all?
I don't know it off the top of my
You just
head.
go to the feelinggoodinstitute.com website and then go for, workshops for therapists, and it'll jump right out at you. And if you want to learn how to treat any kind of habits and addictions, chewing your nails or alcohol or food or, shopping excessively or too much surfing on the internet or cell phone use or whatever, you'll learn many amazing techniques on March 28th.
Sounds fantastic.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I love you all, and we really appreciate your loyalty and interest in our podcast. And send in your ideas and suggestions, the kind of programs you'd like to see more of, and questions that you'd like us to answer.